All right, everybody. I want to just talk about history, I guess, like history. Um, and I have a theory, so that I want to get this theory out there. Um, and the theory it goes as follows. um, they say that the victors write the history, right? Most people will agree with this statement. Um, and up until recently, I think this statement is true. Um, but anyways, so we'll take that. Next, we will go to Greece. And what we see in Greece history is we see this fabled Mycenaean times. And then there's Dark Ages. And then you have the rise of democracy in Athens and Thebes. And that is where we will begin, right? Because there's obviously some sort of Greek civil war that occurred in order to transition from the Mycenaean times to what are called the classical Greek times. um, Now, that's simply my argument right there. My argument is that the democratic Greeks wanted to rewrite the history in order to really erase um, to really erase any positive things that came from the Mycenaean times, right? They don't want these the kings to have any credit. Um, I mean, we definitely see this attitude in that asshole Plutarch, right? Plutarch praises these three Theban rebels who break the laws of hospitality and are a bunch of cowards who kill men in his sleep. And so Plutarch, this man who supposedly praises virtue, is praising this cowardly act, right? And then why is he praising the cowardly act? Because he just hates kings just so much. He just hates them and hates them and hates them and hates them. And I personally think this is a very childish view, toxic, like in the modern politics, toxic. Um, I think if we look at history, all over the world, there's been singular rulers that have done good things for their tribe and singular rulers that have done bad and everything in between. And we can say the same about any form of government. It's not about the form of government, it's about the actual people involved, right? Um, but, Athens definitely, I mean, you see this in Plutarch. It's just, he's toxic as hell. Toxic as hell. Because he goes on to praise Alexander and, you know, like this is not a principled man. You see him throwing his principles out the door because he doesn't want to offend the Greek worship of Alexander. And so that is that is basically my theory. My theory is that the Greek um, the Greek spread around the main Mediterranean happened during the Mycenaean times. And once the Greeks started writing again, they didn't want to attribute any of the spread of the Greek people to the to these kings. They wanted to attribute all the spread of the Greek peoples to business ventures, merchants and stuff, um, collectives of the people and stuff, rather than have the spread of the Greek peoples be due to the Mycenaean kings. Um, Now, if we, if we go to the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? I mean, we see the Greeks versus the Trojans. Um, another thing that we know is that the Greeks are not the only players in the Mediterranean. The Phoenicians are also players in the Mediterranean. I think another thing that I know that nobody else seems to know is that you have the Romanians that speak a Latin language, um, and the Romanians are the original home of the Latins, and the Latins of Italy are a colony of the Romanians, and the colonies of Troy were Romanian Latin-speaking colonies. But in this Iliad, we definitely see the Greek conquest of Western Anatolia was due to the Mycenaeans, right? The Mycenaeans fighting against not only the Hittites but also the Romanians for control of the Mediterranean. I think there's a bunch of other evidence out there. um, it's all, I think you could say, circumstantial. Like the whole Romanian thing. I was learning about the Romans one time, and after they had conquered Dacia, there was several Romans that realized that these Dacians were speaking a form of Latin, right? So the Romanians and the Latins had been separated for so long, they didn't have any histories, and their cultural memories were just myth. Um, and it weirded them out. They were like, hey, these guys are basically speaking a form of our Roman Latin language. That's weird. They didn't understand it. But if this source is true, and that I saw it, I don't even, like, it would be interesting to find out where that source was. But to me, this totally links this, and so you see this fight for control of the shipping lanes of the Mediterranean. Um, but then, and so one of my arguments would be that the foundation of Greek power was really laid um, by the Mycenaeans. And just like the foundation of the Roman power was laid by the early Roman Republic, the early Roman Republic began this system that lasted for 1,000 years and spread all around. But eventually, this Roman system became corrupted and it staggered on like a zombie. These foundations of power staggered on like a zombie, and you could say the same thing about the Greek world. There's this one I know, Roman source. He wrote a history of the world, and he went to Egypt, right? And he was talking to this Egyptian priest, and the Egyptian priest said that Athens was actually founded by the Egyptians, right, in order to gain influence in the Greek world. Um, and just like today, I mean, these are human beings, so we can look at these human beings in a similar way to us. Now, of course, their circumstances are different, so there's going to be differences. But if a powerful nation, interacts with a smaller nation, then a lot of times the powerful nation goes up to the corrupt rulers or to corrupt people within the tribe, this smaller tribe, and makes deals with them. We can see this corrupting influence. And so we can also see this in the history of the Greeks in Sicily, right? The Greeks and the Carthaginians fought for Sicily for a long time. And every time the Greeks embraced democracy, the Phoenicians or like totally embraced democracy. The Phoenicians would be on the verge of total victory of kicking the Greeks out of Sicily. And it was only leaders like Geron that were able to stop them. Or and this is not a polemic. I'm against hereditary monarchy. Because a singular ruler can do great things, but the eldest son of that singular ruler, who the fuck is that guy? And then you're living by the whims of this ruler, people can go bad just like they can go good, so it's just not a good system, and I'm not arguing for it. But at the same time, I think all these the modern toxic polemics is just doesn't have a C straight. I think it's undeniable that singular leaders in history have done good things for their tribe. So I'm not engaging in any political discussions here. I'm just looking at the history books and realizing that the Carthaginians were using democracy in Sicily in order to weaken the Greek peoples and have them fight amongst each other. And when they fought amongst each other, then the Phoenicians would come in and almost wipe them out. And so, this Roman historian, he totally dismissed it. He completely dismissed this idea that Athens was founded by the Egyptians in order to gain influence within the Greek world. But, I totally see it, because this was a corrupting influence within the Greek world. Now you have to ask, why did they do this? And you have to go back to the Iliad and the Odyssey. And you have to go back to the so-called Bronze Age collapse, right? This was, the fact of the matter is that nowadays we know that the Bronze Age collapse was due to Greek expansion in the Mediterranean. And this Greek expansion was again coming from the Mycenaeans. Or during the time of the Mycenaeans. But, and we totally see this in the Iliad, right? You have these Mycenaean kings that are the ones, who are responsible for the colonization, the Greek colonization of Western Anatolia. But these democratic Greeks, and what do we know about democracies throughout, during this time? Well, Athens is full of demagogues that don't really care about what is true and what is false. So the Athenians as a historical source is very suspect, extremely suspect. Because these are liars, right? People who believe in lies. La la la. But yeah, no, it's I'm not arguing at all in terms of good versus evil. Again, this isn't polemics. I'm not praising the Mycenaeans as a great time for the Greek peoples. There's just not enough known about the Mycenaean times because it's all been erased. But I totally believe in this because again we're talking about Phoenicians here. These are the same people that Moses fought against, the Eastern Semites. And these Eastern Semites were a bunch of different city-states, Eastern Semitic city-states, but they all had the same culture. And, they had a small population with a small piece of land, and, they Eastern Semites couldn't raise themselves up like a big empire. Like Egypt or the Greeks that have big populations and more resources. And so, it makes sense that the Phoenicians learn to fight dirty. I mean, you see this all throughout the ancient history books, in that the Phoenicians are known for their duplicity. You know, they come in with a smiling face, calling you friend, but they're there to conquer and dominate, with a knife behind their back, or a knife getting ready to stab you in your back. Um, they don't fight fair. You know, these are assassins and stuff. I mean, times are dirty when assassinations are taking place, because these, there's the forces behind those assassinations, um, want power without accountability. Um, and so, doop doop doo. So I mean, to me, it makes total sense. I mean, how do you bring down these Greek peoples? Um, you bring them down with conspiracy, right? And I think this is obvious. It's like I don't know. People just don't seem to know how to read, because you have all these Greeks out there who talk about Greek history. You have all these Westerners that talk about Greek history, but it's like, like, why don't you like actually read these histories? Because um, like at the rise of Athens is really the fall of the Greek Mediterranean world. Athens would go around genociding. Um, they would go around genociding the Greek peoples themselves. It's like Athens would come in and say, "Hey, you do exactly what we say, or we're going to kill you all." I'm talking to their fellow Greeks. um, I mean, you see this in that terrible, horrible historian Thucydides. Um, I mean, there's all this stuff that's going on in the background of Thucydides' history that he touches on every now and then, but he never really goes into full detail on. Like he'll talk about an incident in a Greek colony where this Greek colony is tearing itself apart between two different polemic political factions. But this small little story is a microcosm of what's happening all over the Greek world, right? In that the Greeks are literally tearing themselves apart. Um, I mean, the rise of Athens is the fall of the Greek Mediterranean world. It's like the Athenians take control and they win some battles, and then what do they do? Then what do they do? Well, they head over to fucking, what's it called? Syracuse. They head over to Syracuse, right? And that's why polemics are just so toxic, because I mean, you see this same sort of thing nowadays. It's like communists take control, and when communists were taking control in different parts of the world, for example, in Russia, people on the left would look at the communist policies and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing? This isn't communism. This isn't leftism. You guys are just doing whatever you want, and then calling it whatever you want." And the communists ended up killing all of the leftists that talked any shit about them, right? There was a lot of killing of leftists by communists. Because you look at, Syracuse is a democratic Greek state. So according to the polemics, why in the world would a fellow democratic Greek state attack another? It makes no sense, right? Now, of course, it makes sense on an economic level, right? Because Syracuse is a competitor, an economic competitor to Athens. And if Athens can gain control of Syracuse, then they're gaining control of a big market. And so, but this exposes the Athenians, um, in that, again, this is the reason why Athenian histories can't be trusted, right? Athenian histories can't be trusted because you can't trust their own polemics, right? Because by attacking Syracuse, it exposes all of their polemics as just lies. In order to, is demagoguery. That's the accusation against the Athenians by ancient sources that are opposed to the Athenians. Ancient sources that are opposed to the Athenians. For example, like Socrates calls them a bunch of demagogues, right? So no wonder he gets killed. But it's like, yeah, I mean, regardless of this theory that the foundation of Greek power in the Mediterranean world was laid by the Mycenaeans. Um, and I'm not saying this, and that I'm not saying that the Mycenaeans, like I said, were a perfect polity or whatever, or just or anything like that. I'm just stating that Greek expansionism into the Mediterranean definitely began with the Mycenaeans, and all the historical writers that came after, including Strabo and stuff. Maybe especially Strabo, they're trying to hide any Mycenaean accomplishments. But regardless of that, if we just look at the actual history of Athens, especially within Thucydides, which is just a terrible source, but we can see within this Thucydides, the Greek world just tearing itself apart, and to Thucydides, like, this is, like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care that the Greeks are tearing themselves apart. This is just a little story here where he's going to talk about this one little Greek place where, all the Greeks in this place are killing each other. One faction, they come in, they kill each other, and then they get defeated, and they get killed. And anybody that's still alive from the other faction comes to power. But it's like, this is happening, like, this little story is happening all over the Greek world, of Greek communities tearing themselves apart. And it's like, this is a major thing that's happening in this history during Thucydides' time that he doesn't really care about. I mean, it's like, whoa. And he only puts as if it's a part of his story, he'll put it down. But I mean, it's just obvious. It's just obvious that the Athenians received power from previous Greek ways, and from a previous Greek history, and they were able to capitalize on this, to extract wealth But this extraction of wealth came at the cost of Greek power within the Mediterranean. I mean, damn, it's just like, regardless of the first theory, I mean, I think it's obvious that the Athenians were the death of Greek power in the Mediterranean world.